Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Cotter. I'm here today to give an informational speech on the use of hydrogen as a fuel. Hydrogen can be used as an alternative fuel from gasoline or diesel that we use in our vehicles today. It is the most common element on the planet, and in this PowerPoint, in this speech, I will give a brief explanation of how hydrogen is produced, how the fuel cell works, and a couple of its applications, along with where it's headed to in the future. So to start with, in hydrogen production, hydrogen can be made from splitting a water molecule into its two separate components, hydrogen and oxygen. And that is done through a process known as electrolysis. And in this chart, it shows how electrolysis works. You have your water, you put an electrical current into it, and it splits your hydrogen and your oxygen into their separate element. This can also be done through use of renewable energies such as solar, which is known as photoelectrolysis, and biological methods, which are a lot of landfills and stuff like that use to generate their own power. So now we'll talk about a little bit about a fuel cell. They work similar to how a battery would work. They're used NASA currently uses them to launch their rockets into space, and they can be used in cars, and you can also integrate them into a power grid. So now we'll take a look at a fuel cell. So hydrogen goes in on one side, oxygen goes in on the other, and this region right here is where they meet, and it has a chemical reaction, and it produces water as your exhaust, and the power, your energy out, goes to whatever you're powering. So now we'll talk a little bit about the future of hydrogen fuel. So right now, there's a very limited amount of hydrogen refueling stations. Most of them are in California currently. That poses a problem for the general public because there's not a wide availability of it. And also, cars made with hydrogen fuel cells aren't readily available all the time. So another one is going to be cost. You got transportation costs, which for right now they can be transported in cryogenic tankers, or they can be in a pressurized tube trailer, which makes it transports it as a gas. And then fuel cells often require platinum, which is a very expensive resource, and there's current research going on to find a cheaper alternative to platinum so that they can bring the cost down. And there's also another thing known as green hydrogen. That is making hydrogen 100% with the renewable resources. So they would get rid of, you wouldn't use coal plants or anything like that. Everything would be wind, solar, or biological. And the net goal of that would be zero emissions, or zero carbon emissions. So here's a chart showing your hydrogen over here, what all it can be used for, and how it integrates into a power grid. And renewables will go into your power grid. Also, then in the middle, you have your hydrogen generation. And I know this slide's kind of hard to see, but this is the green hydrogen concept. You have an offshore wind turbine. It goes into a production facility to use the electrolysis process to make the hydrogen. Then it goes to a storage facility, and then it's piped in to your home to make a zero carbon heating for your home. So there will be no fossil fuels whatsoever in there. So that's all I have for this speech. Gave a brief explanation of the production of it, briefly on fuel cells and a couple of their uses and where hydrogen is headed to in the future. So thank you for listening.